Hey everyone, welcome to the prerequisites for class 1. What this mainly does is set up your computer so that way when you go to class 1, everything is set up, you can start the build, you don't have to go through all of this infrastructure and installation stuff, and we're getting it out of the way so that way the class itself is focused on the build and it's the most productive and you can ask questions live as we're going through all of the building aspects. One thing I want to flag up front, this part kind of sucks, to be totally honest. It's a drag. It's a lot of technical stuff thrown at you. It's a lot of installation, and you don't really see the payoff with your own eyes because there's nothing really being presented. But the good news is we only have to do this once. Then your computers are set up, and we can just keep continuing on the build and do up whatever you want with it. So don't let it intimidate you. Don't let it sway you from stopping to take the class or anything. It's just we got to get through it. I would allot about an hour, give or take, to get through it. You can do it in pieces, but that's kind of how long it'll take end to end. And like I said, we only have to do it once, but you know what? We'll get through it. So the things that we'll be installing are these four tools. I'll go into detail for each of them, but at a high level, we're going to be installing Visual Studio Code or VS Code, Claude Code, which is going to be what we interact with in almost everything that we do, GitHub, which is kind of your Google Drive and backup system, and then Vercel, which will hold the website that you're actually going to go and launch. So to go into detail first for VS Code or Visual Studio Code, the way to think about it for our purposes is it's really just a really fancy file manager. It opens a folder and it creates and edits all the files in the folder, and you don't really need to know how to code, and it has a lot of really, really powerful functionality. But for our exact purposes, it's really just a file manager, like your Finder in Mac or your File Explorer in Windows. So kind of think of it in that way, and it's a lot easier to deal with. And you can pretty much ignore everything else in it because we're really only going to use Claude Code. So what we want to do is actually download and install it. So I'll do that right now. Oh, I already have this installed, so we'll already have it. So let me just open it up. Studio Code. All right, so here we go. Let's just you do not need to sign in with this. I don't think I ever did in all of my setup. So just go through the get started, and this is basically what it is. And so you don't need this chat over here. This is just your home page, and all of your files will be shown in this tab here. And so this isn't open with any file, which is the way it is right now. So this is the most confusing part about it, is that in most other programs, you're going to open a new project or a new file or something like that. But because this is just a fancy file manager, we're actually going to open a new folder, and the entire project is going to be contained within that folder. So the way to open a new project is actually through this open folder command. And so what you're going to want to do is create a new file wherever you want to save it. I always save mine on the desktop because it's the easiest place for me to find it. So that's where I'm going to save it. And for the class series, I'm going to be redoing the website for my Scuba Zen mobile app. So I'm just going to name it Scuba Zen website. Just really straightforward, so I know exactly what it is. And then you hit open. And so this is, it looks almost identical when you have it, but what you want to make sure is up here on your top left, is an actual folder or the name of your folder, and that's how you know you're in a project. If you start coding without this file folder, it'll just start saving everything on the desktop, and then you're just going to have files scattered everywhere, or it'll save it in random places. So you want to keep it all contained within a folder. So let's see. So that's done. So the next thing we want to do is we want to open and install Claude Code. It is worth noting that you need a subscription, a paid subscription, in order to use Claude Code. You can use the $20 a month one. You don't have to upgrade to the more complicated ones, but that is all you need. So the way you install it is this little series of boxes here is extensions. So all you're going to do is look for Claude Code and make sure you get the one from Anthropic, because there are a lot of other ones. So we trust. Let's start with Claude Code. All right. You're a coding partner. Open Claude Code. Control this. So this is typically how I open Claude Code. Right here is this little guy. It's the Anthropic symbol. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to log in with my Claude account. And that's it. Now you can close the window, and if you go back, you should be logged in. And so you'll see this, and you're in. This is Claude Code. This is what everybody's been talking about. So just as a housekeeping item, what you want to do when we're coding is make sure that our model is Opus. It's default, it should be that way, but I like to kind of force it a little bit. The reason for this is Opus is much better than the lesser tier models at coding. So it'll make less mistakes, it'll do better run-throughs, and it'll be an overall better experience for everyone. Now, one thing to note here is that if for whatever reason you cannot find this, so like let's say I close this and it's completely gone, one of the ways you can do that is just create a file, do whatever, and then it'll pop up over here and you can use that. That's kind of my way to get through it. And then I just close all these other windows so I have the most space for Claude Code. And then you can even delete this file. It was nonsense anyway. So before we start digging into using Claude Code, I think there's a mentality shift that helps a lot of people here. Is prior to using AI and using these tools to do things, we've always had to learn the platform that we were going to use and what their UI is, and there was always a learning curve with all of that stuff. And so we would always ask, how do I do this or how do I do that? And then we would search and like try to figure it out or look through documents or watch YouTube videos. None of that really needs to be done with Claude and AI anymore, because it can answer our direct questions in whatever way that we can receive information and be communicated. So most of us are going to be non-technical, so we can tell it, hey, explain it to me like I'm a middle school student so that I can understand it better. We have that flexibility to be able to get the answers in a way that we can understand. And there's not a lot of like, how do I do this anymore? Because we can just directly ask Claude, how do I do that? Or please do that for me, and it will go and execute on our behalf. So think of it as like you're talking to a human or an employee or somebody who works for you to get things done. The exact same thing you would say to somebody you work with is how you should communicate with Claude, and it'll be a lot easier because it opens up a lot of doors. You don't feel limited in what you can and can't do, and Claude can just kind of work with you and figure out what to do. So this is where we start installing a lot of the stuff, and I've included a prompt here for you guys to use. where Claude will just run and do most of the work for us. There is one item for Mac users where we have to enter a password and Claude cannot do that, but it will tell us. So I'm just going to copy this prompt and move over to VS Code, paste it in, and we're off to the races. And this will take a while, so just be patient. It's going to ask you for a lot of approvals. On approvals, if you hit this one, the second one, yes, allow for this project, you can change it to all projects, but it will stop asking you the same type of command that it has to go through. And one thing is we can switch this to edit automatically, so it'll reduce just inherently a lot of the things that it's going to ask us. Also note that because I'm using my personal computer, a lot of the stuff might already be installed, so this might go a little bit faster for me than it would for you. Don't get hung up on that. What we're looking for is the final confirmation. So, Homebrew is the one for Mac users that we need to enter the password. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this command and we're going to open terminal and we're going to paste the command there. And then this is where it asks for your password. So you just enter your password and hit enter. And then just keep going. So because this is a pretty big program, it may take a little bit to install. Just be patient. You'll know you're done when it tells you that it was successful. See, when you see your little username and the % at the end, you should be done. So you can quit out of the terminal and you should be good. So then you tell Claude it's installed, please confirm. See, now we're good on Homebrew, and then it'll keep doing the rest of the commands. Okay, so basically what this is saying is everything's installed and verified. So we're good to go, and then we just have to log in, but we'll do that together in a second. I want to explain it first. So we're good here. And if there are any issues that it ran into, just work with Claude to figure out how to fix it. Say, okay, how do we get this installed? But you should be fine. So GitHub is the next thing that we're installing, and basically think of GitHub like a Google Drive or a Dropbox for your code. You'll push code there, and it's like putting files in the cloud. You can grab it from any computer where you're logged into your account, and it's really just a good place to back up. I think what's really important in our case here also, though, is that we'll use this account to link to a lot of other services. So that way they all work together much easier than if we were managing a lot of different accounts. So this GitHub will serve as your central login for most of the services that we are installing and linking to. Versal is the other thing that we install, and this is where your website is hosted. It's free hosting, and it auto updates your website whenever you update GitHub with your new code. So just think of it as the place your website lives to make humans be able to see it. It's really all you need to know about it. Hobby Plan is plenty sufficient for us. And then so what we're going to do is we're going to sign up for these two accounts, and then we will link them. So first thing is with GitHub, you're going to sign up with an account. So I already have an account, so I'll sign in. So that one's covered, and then we have to get into Vercel as well. So let's log in here, and then this is really important. Continue with GitHub is how you want to log in with Vercel. So that's how you link the two of them. And so I have 2FAC turned on, which all of you should absolutely do. It's really important for security. And where is it? There we go. And then we are logged into Vercel. Okay, so that's basically the account creation process. You guys would have signed up instead of logging in, but it's the same general process. So now we want to log in with both of them. So let's log in to Vercel and GitHub. And so what we're doing here is, although we just logged in on the browser, we're giving Claude Code access to our accounts so it can manage for us. So you basically just hit allow. Great. I'm going to reopen the terminal. GitHub HTTPS is what we want to use. Then yes. Log in with web browser is how we want to do this. So just hit enter. And then copy this code. And then once you hit enter, it'll launch a browser. And then you continue and enter the code and continue, authorize, and we're good. So now you can go back, quit this, go back to VS Code and say, I'm logged in. All right, so now Claude says we're all set, we're logged in, everything is connected, we're ready to go. But there are a few other things that we want to do just before we're set up. So this was a prompt you could use to log in, which I am now seeing. I forgot to connect to the Claude Code CLI, so let's do that real quick. Can you also log into Claude Code CLI? Oops. Okay, so we're logged in. We're good. Everything is set. So then just let's make sure, as a good housekeeping item, to make sure that our terminal works. It should work. This is just a cover the base situation. But this is so you can add agents and have increased functionality with Claude Code. It's worth the double check. It's probably fine, but it's worth it. So in my case, it found a problem, so we're going to allow it to fix it itself. This is why we do this step. Okay, we're good. So we should be fine. Okay. Now, you'll notice that during this process, I clicked approve a ton of times. You have to sit here and monitor it. And that's all safety features built into Claude Code. The thing is that a lot of these approvals are really innocuous. They're just standard things that it needs to do in order to execute whatever you're trying to build. And they really don't have any harm to your computer. So to reduce the load of how many of these we have to hit approve for, I've created this kit that you can download and install. This is completely optional. If you're really worried about every action, then don't do this, but you're just going to have to sit there and hit approve and generally understand each command. This will handle it. This will reduce the load. But the thing that's really important is the things that could go wrong, or like deleting files or publishing to the internet and things like that, those will still ask for approval. And we want to keep that. So that's a good thing. So what you do is you copy this prompt and you give it to Claude. It's going to go to a repo I've released to the public, pull down the file and put it in the right location. So that way, the next time you install Claude Code, or restart it, I mean, it will automatically be loaded and ready to go. You can even ask Claude to show it to you and see what's in there and edit it however you want. The more you use Claude Code, the more commands you can throw in there or delete. It's all fully editable and under your control. This was just a good starting point where I felt the commands were pretty safe and really would reduce the amount of times you have to sit here and hit enter. So it's installed. And so it will not load until we restart Claude Code. So what I'm going to do, okay, so this is just a warning about Impeccable. We're going to install it later. Don't stress about it. I'll probably remove it in your version. But the way you restart Claude Code is you close it completely, just like before. And then we need to open it again, so we'll just create a fake file and we'll open it that way. I'm sure there's a shortcut that's a lot easier, but this is the way I do it. So, okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to install agents. And so what agents are with Claude Code are basically specialists that it can delegate tasks to. So in our case, for these two agents specifically, we're going to be installing a code reviewer and a security reviewer. So what they are is when Claude writes code, it's not going to get the code right the first time. So it wants to delegate to a code reviewer who's going to look at it with a set of fresh eyes and identify any issues with it and make any fixes. So that way, when it's ready to test or go to the next step, it's a much higher quality than that initial first pass. And that makes sense. Even we make mistakes in the first time, and we need to review things before they're right. Security reviewer looks at the cybersecurity of whatever you just built. So sometimes you'll code and there'll be security vulnerabilities. So the reviewer agent will go through and make sure that those vulnerabilities are either fixed or flag things that you have to do over on top and make a decision about. For a marketing website that doesn't really store any data or connect to any databases, the risk is pretty low. But if you're going to launch a production app or something like that, it matters a lot more, and the security reviewer is very helpful for this. I'm not going to say that it will catch 100% of cases and it's airtight and you can just launch everything, but it's a really good starting point to get a lot of the easy stuff reviewed, and you should absolutely do a really in-depth review before launching anything to the public that is storing information. So the way that we're going to create these reviewers is I created two prompts that we'll just copy and paste in Claude Code. So we have the code reviewer here. And so this includes both the prompt to tell Claude what to do as well as the actual file of the agent, which is just basically a set of directions on what it needs to do. These are changeable, they're starting points, so you can improve them, you can add to them or subtract from them however you see fit. This is just what I use currently, but I'm always editing and adapting to it. So what you'll do is you'll just hit paste here, and Claude will install the first one. And once that's done, we'll install the second one, and then we have our agents built. Okay, this is the file it created, so it's just asking for permission. Okay, so confirmation, the first one is done. So let's go back and now let's install the second one. So we're just going to copy and paste. Okay, good. So both are available, they're done, we're installed. So now we have the agents, but we need to tell Claude when to use them. This is just a reiteration of what I just said. So what we need to do is tell Claude, hey, every time you make changes, make sure that you run a code reviewer and security reviewer so that we make sure that we have everything covered. So we're going to copy this prompt. And just to give you more context, a Claude MD is a set of directions for Claude. So basically, you can add any rule you want, you can add any set of directions you want, and Claude will almost always listen to them. So this is especially useful if it keeps making the same mistake over and over again. You can say, hey, add to your Claude MD to stop making this mistake, and this is how you fix it. Or if it keeps explaining things to you that are too technical or in language that you don't understand, you can create a rule that's, hey, explain it to me like I'm in middle school, or explain it to me like I'm a pirate, if that really suits the way you ingest information. And so it'll continuously follow those rules, and you can keep adjusting Claude to your preferences. The thing that you should have to decide every time you create a rule, though, is whether to make it a global or a project level rule. So if you do it in a global level, it's going to be Claude Code's rule on every project you ever have on your computer. So it's really good for things like language and launching Code Reviewer, which is where we're putting this. If you do it at a project level, it's only going to apply to that project. So if you're doing brand colors or a certain type of branding, that's a project level rule you want to put in there, as opposed to a global, which would span many projects. And with that, you're fully set up and ready for class 1. It's a lot of infrastructure setup, but this was only needed to be done once, and now you're ready to start building when we go to class 1.